Namaskar, good evening. You are watching Rajya Sabha television. I am Smriti Rastogi with News Tonight. Let's begin the bulletin with the top headlines. RBI board accepts recommendations by high-level panel headed by its former governor Bimal Jalan, agrees to transfer 1.76 lakh crore rupees in dividend and surplus reserves to the government. No third-party intervention needed on Jammu and Kashmir, asserts Prime Minister Narendra Modi after his meeting with US President Donald Trump at the G7 conference. Prime Minister categorically states that India and Pakistan can resolve every issue bilaterally. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump hold 2 rounds of talks in France. Both sides resolved to increase cooperation and trade, facilitate Indian investments in the US energy sector, and large-scale energy-related imports for India from the US. No relief for P Chidambaram in the INX media money laundering case. Delhi court extends the former union minister's CBI remand by 4 days till 30th of August. Supreme Court dismisses his appeal against the Delhi High Court's refusal of anticipatory bail. And Union Home Minister Amit Shah reviews ongoing operations against Naxalites, says government committed to uprooting the menace, discusses development initiatives in left-wing extremism-affected areas with chief ministers. Our top focus this evening, the Reserve Bank of India has decided to transfer 1.76 lakh crore rupees in dividend and surplus reserve to the government. This follows the RBI board accepting the recommendations of a high-level panel headed by its former governor Bimal Jalan on transfer of excess reserves to the government. In a statement, the central bank said that its board has decided to transfer a sum of 1.76 lakh crore rupees to the government, comprising 1.23 crore rupees of the surplus for the year 2018-19 and 52,637 crore rupees of excess provisions identified as per the revised economic capital framework. And to get more information on this, we'll go across to the senior journalist K. Yatish Rajawat. So thank you so much for speaking to Rajya Sabha television. In the context of the current economic situation, how will the RBI's decision help the government?
So basically, as you know, that a lot of sectors in the economy are facing a slowdown. So obviously, the tax receipts that the government expects from these sectors is not expected to be as robust as the budget projected. So to prevent a higher fiscal deficit, this 1,76,000 crore will obviously, help the government in meeting its target for revenue receipts, basically.
Right. And the issue had been the reason for a tug of war between the government and the RBI. What was the bone of contention earlier?
See, the bone of contention here was basically that RBI felt that they had, they didn't have to give this money to the government, and as the RBI over the years has maintained these reserves almost for themselves, it took a committee to basically convince them that it is important that they give these funds which they are not utilizing in any manner to the government, where it would be possibly help to bridge the so-called deficit in these trying times.
Right, help to bridge the deficit. Sir, thank you so much for joining us and speaking to us on that very important development from the RBI. Moving on to some more news, difference of understanding between the India and the USA on Jammu and Kashmir is over now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has categorically made it clear to the US President Donald Trump that there is no scope for any intervention on the abrogation of Article 370, as it will remain a bilateral matter between India and Pakistan for all purposes. Rather, Prime Minister suggested that India and Pakistan should work together to tackle the challenges of poverty, as both were the same country in the past.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday had 2 rounds of extensive talks with US President Donald Trump in the French seaside resort town of Biarritz. Both leaders later addressed a media conference and fielded the media's questions on the sidelines of the G7 meeting. Prime Minister Modi made it a point to categorically state that no other country needed to be worried about Jammu and Kashmir, which is just a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan.
भारत और पाकिस्तान के सारे इश्यूज बायलैटरल है और इसलिए हम दुनिया के किसी भी देश को इनके लिए कष्ट नहीं देते हैं और मुझे विश्वास है कि भारत और पाकिस्तान जो 1947 के पहले एक ही थे, हम मिलजुल करके हमारी समस्याओं पर चर्चा भी कर सकते हैं और समाधान भी कर सकते हैं.
The talks came against the backdrop of Trump making references to mediation on the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. However, Prime Minister Modi convinced the US President that both India and Pakistan needed to work together on issues like poverty eradication and creating better opportunities for people of both countries.
भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच कई बायलैटरल इश्यूज हैं और पाकिस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री के चुनाव के बाद जब मैंने उनको टेलीफोन किया था तब मैंने उनसे कहा है हम दोनों देश मिलकर के गरीबी के खिलाफ लड़ें, हमारी असुविधाओं के खिलाफ लड़ें और हम मिलकर के दोनों देश की आवाम की भलाई के लिए काम करें. ये संदेश मैंने पाकिस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री जी को भी दिया है और राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप से भी हमेशा हमारे इस बायलैटरल संबंधों के संबंध में बात होती रहती है.
Prime Minister Modi and US President Trump also had an in-depth review of the global situation. The strategic unity between the two countries was very evident from their body language too.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with Prime Minister Modi of India, incredible country, and he's an incredible man. Just had a tremendous election victory, and he really is a man who's loved and respected in his country. We're talking about trade, we're talking about military, we're talking about many different things, and we've had some great discussions. We were together last night for dinner, and I learned a lot about India. Fascinating place. Beautiful place, and it's an honor to be with you.
भारत का और अमेरिका का आर्थिक क्षेत्र में, व्यापार के क्षेत्र में लगातार बातचीत हो रही है और कई विषयों में हम अमेरिका के सुझावों का स्वागत करते हैं और मिलजुल करके ट्रेड के क्षेत्र में आगे बढ़ने की दिशा में हम प्रयास कर रहे हैं.
Trade and commerce figured significantly in the talks between the two leaders, with both agreeing to remove obstacles in trade to provide a strategic depth to bilateral ties. Energy cooperation was also a major component of the talks. Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale said India's businesses will be able to invest in energy sectors of America.
Subsequent to that, there was a 40-minute meeting, and it was principally focused on issues of trade and energy. The Prime Minister spoke of the importance of energy imports from the United States. He referred to the fact that $4 billion worth of imports were already in the pipeline and that we expected to step it up. The objective there is twofold. One, to see how we can import more energy from the United States, and the second is how we can invest in the energy sector in the United States, or rather how Indian companies can invest in the energy sector in the United States. So essentially, the two leaders have agreed that preferably before Prime Minister's visit to Washington, there will be an interaction between the trade ministers at which we will discuss the whole range of trade issues. So essentially, that was the gist of the discussion. It was a very warm meeting, very positive meeting. It followed the discussions that Prime Minister had with President Trump on the telephone the week before.
In a setback to Pakistan, US President Donald Trump said India had an important role in establishing peace in Afghanistan. A notable feature of the talks was the bonhomie between the two leaders, who cracked jokes in a show of rare personal chemistry with each other. Akhilesh Sukans report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And for more on this, we'll go across to our correspondent Akhilesh Sukans, who is joining us from the newsroom. Akhilesh, there were speculations about the point of Jammu and Kashmir being flagged up in the meeting between the US President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Do we see all the controversies about the matter being laid to rest now?
You're right, Smriti. Actually, everyone was keeping the fingers crossed that how Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump will gel together after the way President Donald Trump had tweeted, had told Imran Khan that he wants to mediate, and he also gave hints that he is ready for mediation. It was like that. So I think Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given enough hint, and he has actually directly drew a red line, that this is the red line of India, and this red line should not be crossed. But other than that, you know that the chemistry between the two leaders was so obvious. I have hardly seen two heads of states talking in such a lighter vein, cracking jokes and patting their hands. So I think it was a exemplary chemistry that was established today. After a long time they had talked, and so in that way it was a very controversial issue that President Donald Trump tried to enter into, and now I think that this thing has gone, and America has understood that this red line should not be crossed. And when I was hearing Donald Trump, he was speaking in a way that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will talk to Pakistan in coming days, and if everything is all right, they can be good friends. It was like that. So I think he has hopes, and India also has hope that India and Pakistan will resolve the issue bilaterally. So I think now, for now and for future also, the issue of mediation will not come from American side, I think.
Absolutely. And trade and commerce also figured significantly in the talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump. Both sides have agreed to remove obstacles in trade to provide strategic development in the relations between both the nations.
Right. This is one of the major issues that Foreign Secretary briefed, that this was discussed in very detail. Actually, yesterday Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump talked in detail about the contours of relationship, and when they agreed about the contours of relationship regarding Pakistan, regarding Afghanistan, global strategic issue like Indo-Pacific and others, trade and tariff issues are very important as far as the economies of the two countries are concerned. But given the fact that India and US enjoy the unique relationship, so multifaceted relationship, that they have agreed that this relationship has to be maintained, and that is why I think Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given him the word that these issues have to be resolved. And when Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to Washington DC to attend a UNGA meeting in September, actually in September, Piyush Goyal, the Commerce Minister, and his counterpart may talk about the trade and commerce issues, maybe in Delhi, maybe in Washington. Most probably it will take place in Washington DC, because the junior level official level talk had taken place in Delhi recently. So I think Piyush Goyal will go to Washington to finalize the whole contours of trade relationship. And as far as trade deficit is haunting America, trade issues is in favor of India. So India also favorably wants that the trade issue has to be resolved, so that our strategic issues can go in a better way. So I think there is enough understanding between the two heads of a state, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and American President Donald Trump, and I think this issue is going to be resolved, in coming months.
Thank you so much, Akhilesh, for joining us and helping us understand that very important development. So remember, today Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump met, and a host of issues were discussed between the two leaders. Now the G7 summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the dedicated session on climate change, underlining India's contribution to address reducing biodiversity, climate change, water stress and ocean pollution. The Prime Minister highlighted India's large-scale efforts towards eliminating single-use plastic, conserving water, harnessing solar energy and protecting flora and fauna for a sustainable future. He also led the dedicated session on digital transformation, where he highlighted India's efforts in putting digital technology to fight social inequalities through empowerment and inclusion. Earlier in the day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also held one-on-one talks with UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, President of Senegal Macky Sall and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on the sidelines of the summit. In some more news, Home Minister Amit Shah on Monday reviewed ongoing operations against Naxals and development initiatives being undertaken in the Naxal-affected areas. Chief Ministers of Bihar, Odisha, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, besides top police and civil officials of 10 Naxal-affected states, attended the meeting. Addressing the meeting, Shah termed left-wing extremism as one of the major internal security challenges faced by the nation for the last several decades. He added that Naxalism has no place in Prime Minister's vision of New India and called for the need to check flow of funds to left-wing extremism organization. Shah urged the states to adopt a focused, time-bound approach to completely eliminate the left-wing extremism and ensure all-round development of the affected regions. Top officials of paramilitary forces and Home Ministry were also present in the meeting. And BJP plans a month-long contact program on revoking Article 370 to highlight the significance of the government's decision to nullify Article 370 and Article 35A. Government, ministers, MPs and office bearers will hold public meetings in 35 big cities and 370 smaller towns. The towns in Kashmir chosen for the program are Srinagar, Anantnag, Baramulla and Sopore. And in a major setback to former Union Minister P Chidambaram, the Supreme Court on Monday refused to entertain the plea challenging the dismissal of his anticipatory bail in a corruption case lodged by the CBI in the INX media case. The Apex Court asked Chidambaram to move a regular bail before the appropriate court, saying his petition became infructuous since he had been arrested on August 21st. Meanwhile, the special CBI court also extended his CBI remand by 4 more days in relation to the INX media case. He will now be produced before the court on 30th of August. And with that, we'll slip into a very quick break. More news and updates on the other side. Stay with us.
How Rajya Sabha makes law on state subject. Rajya Sabha empowers the Parliament to make law on the state subject by passing a resolution by a majority of not less than 2/3 of members present and voting.
Welcome back. Buoyed by the stimulus package provided by the government last week to revive the economy, equity markets posted their best performance in 3 months on Monday. The benchmark Sensex rebounded 1,000 points in the intraday trade before settling at 37,494, up 793 points or 2.2% higher. The Nifty 50 index ended the day at 11,058, up 229 points or 2.1%. The rupee, however, weakened as foreign portfolio investors continued to pull out money despite the government's decision to withdraw the surcharge imposed on their earnings in the budget presented in the July. Gold prices continued their upward run, soaring to record highs as investors preferred to park their money in the safe haven assets in uncertain global economic environment. The Supreme Court on Monday directed disbursement of 7.16 crore rupees to the state-run National Buildings Construction Corporation to complete the stalled projects of real estate group Amrapali, which has been accused of fraud. The sum was earlier deposited by the Amrapali group with the top court's registry. The Apex Court also directed that a forensic audit report be given to the Enforcement Directorate, Delhi Police and the Institute of Chartered Accountants in India for taking appropriate action against Amrapali directors and auditors. It also directed the Noida and Greater Noida authorities to comply with its earlier order. The bench posted the matter for further hearing on 11th of September. And the government will provide Wi-Fi in all villages through GramNet with 10 Mbps to 100 Mbps speed, delivering a keynote address at the 36th Foundation Day celebrations of C. MOS for Communications and IT, Sanjay Dhotre, gave this information. The minister launched C.'s latest innovations and said that CSAT-5 technology of C. will empower people, especially in rural and remote areas, as telephone and Wi-Fi facilities will be available in all corners of the country on any mobile phone.
C. empowered the rural India by taking telephones in 80s through RAXes, and now it is taking data services to every Gram Panchayat with its GPON technology under the ambitious BharatNet project, thus empowering and strengthening the Gram Panchayats who are celebrating 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi ji this year.
An External Affairs Minister S Jaishankar held talks with his Hungarian counterpart in Budapest on Monday. Both leaders held a very productive meeting where both sides vowed to work closely to enhance bilateral cooperation. S Jaishankar, along with Foreign Minister of Hungary, also addressed the Hungarian Annual Ambassadors Conference. The two leaders also signed a cultural exchange program between India and Hungary. And some more news, Chandrayaan II, which is currently orbiting the moon, has captured some more images of the lunar surface, showing several craters. Sharing the pictures, ISRO said in a statement that the photos captured by the lunar spacecraft are those of craters Sommerfeld, Kirkwood, Jackson, Mash, Korolev, Mitra, Plaskett, Rodesvinsky and Hermite. These craters have been named after great scientists, astronomers and physicists. Crater Mitra has been named after Professor Sisir Kumar Mitra, an Indian physicist and Padma Bhushan recipient known for his pioneering work in the field of ionosphere and radiophysics. These pictures of the lunar surface were taken on August 23rd by terrain mapping camera 2 of Chandrayaan II from an altitude of about 4,375 kilometers. The first picture of moon captured by Chandrayaan II was released by ISRO on August 22nd. Piping hot tea, and that too served in earthy aromatic coolers. The fight against plastic is becoming more appetizing and a feast for the senses. After Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Sunday's Mann Ki Baat call for a new revolution against plastic, Union Minister Nitin Gadkari today announced that tea and coffees will be served in coolers at railway stations, bus terminals, airports and even malls. So go ahead and get rid of plastic when you sip your chai in earthy and soul-soothing flavors of cooler. We'll see you again tomorrow. Keep watching Rajya Sabha television.